Hi again. Council of Nicaea, Part 2. That's page 155 in History of Christianity by Kenneth Latourette. Even a cursory comparison of the two creeds, that is, the two versions of the Nicene Creed, will show the nature of the changes. For logos, which the Arians could use, was substituted the word son, and that term was emphasized by keeping the word only begotten, that is, begotten in a way different from the sons of God who are adopted, and also by adding that the Son is of the substance of the Father. In place of life from life, which might be interpreted in various ways, the phrase true God from true God was used to make more explicit God from God. Homoousion was inserted. This was of central significance, for it stated emphatically a position which was the storm center between the two extremes, and was rapidly to become the crux of the difference between them. Came down, another addition, implied that Christ had been with God and was not subordinate to him, possibly the reason back of the substitution of ascended into the heavens for ascended to the Father. Was made man was also inserted, perhaps to emphasize the belief that Jesus Christ was not only true God, but also not merely flesh, but true man. This would serve to make clear that through the incarnation of the Son in Jesus Christ, men could share in his sonship. As in the Apostles' Creed, so in the Nicene Creed, painfully, slowly, and through controversies in which there was often lacking the love which is the major Christian virtue, Christians were working their way through to a clarification of what was presented to the world by the tremendous historical fact of Christ. At Nicaea, it was more and more becoming apparent to them that the high God must also be the Redeemer, and yet, by a seeming paradox, the Redeemer must also be man. The astounding central and distinguishing affirmation of Christianity, so they increasingly saw, and what made Christianity unique and compelling, was that Jesus Christ was true God from true God, or to put it in language more familiar to English readers, very God of very God, who was made man. Thus men could be reborn and become sons of God, but without losing their individual identity. The words were not always wisely chosen, perhaps because words could not be found, which would exactly stand for the reality. For instance, ousia had several different connotations in Greek philosophical usage, and though substantia was used in translation into Latin, and for one sense of ousia, accurately, the latter term had no precise Latin equivalent. Existing terminology was chosen, which would come as nearly as possible to the fact, and then would gradually be given the connotation which would convey what Christians meant by it. To make the position of the Council towards Arius unmistakable, it was declared that the Catholic Church anathematized, namely cursed, those who say there was a time when he, that is the Son of God, was not, or that he did not exist before he was begotten, or that he was made of nothing, or that he is of other substance or essence from the Father, or that he was created, or mutable, or susceptible to change. It will be noted that the creed which today bears the name of Nicene is a further development from the one which was adopted in Nicaea. Yet the latter's essential features are preserved. The Council of Nicaea embraced the opportunity to settle some other issues which were troubling the Catholic Church. The time for the observance of Easter was agreed upon and made uniform, thus attempting to ensure accord on what had been a subject of controversy. Here it may be remarked, the Council was not entirely successful. Steps were also taken to end the Meletian schism which we mentioned earlier, but in vain, for the Meletians persisted for at least a century longer. Several canons or rules were adopted for the administration and discipline of the Church, among them one which required at least 3 bishops for the laying on of hands, namely the consecration of a bishop, regulations for the treatment of those who had fallen away during the recent persecutions, for a uniform handling of the excommunicated, and for improving the morals of the clergy and the bishops by more care in admission to these orders, by prohibiting the clergy from exacting usury, and by keeping other women than their near relatives from their homes. These canons shed much light on the quality of the lives of Christians in the forepart of the 4th century, and on the means which were taken to maintain high moral standards and orderly procedures. To enforce the decisions of the Council of Nicaea, Constantine commanded, with the death penalty for disobedience, the burning of all books composed by Arius, banished Arius and his closest supporters, and deposed from their sees Eusebius of Nicomedia and another bishop who had been active in the support of Arius. Next time, the resurgence of Arianism. I'll put in a link to Jacques Ellul's take on the importance of Constantine.